Soundies. Good to see you today, at least virtually. I am here in San Francisco. This is my hotel room in my very, very simple live streaming setup. We are crossing our fingers that the Wi-Fi at the hotel will be able to manage this. It's good to see you all here. Matt, enjoy your pecan pie. Christopher, I will talk about my remote live streaming setup, what it looks like. Doesn't sound the best, but this is what we have to work with today. Matt never shares his pecan pie. It's a tragedy. And he also doesn't share his crab, although we had a crab dinner. Hello, Daniela. It's great to see you here today. Keith is joining us from Philly today, 42 Fahrenheit, cloudy. It's also cloudy here in San Francisco, which is actually not a bad thing for the lighting situation. We'll talk about that in just a minute. All right. Hello, Audio Buff. Sinov, good to see you here today. Chris, good to have you here from Reading or Reading. Not sure how you pronounce it. If when you're British, I think it's Reading. Not positive. Dan, good to have you here. All right. Well, let's go ahead and I don't have a ton prepared. I think it's going to be a pretty informal, chill kind of thing today. So let me just talk about a few things here. First of all, the live stream setup. We are literally just running with an old M2 MacBook Pro with 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's the webcam that we're using right here. And I am just in my hotel room. This light is actually not on. What's lighting me, that's my key light. It's actually a window right here. That's my key light. This one just has the illusion of this being the key light. We have a practical here behind us, and that's it. There's another window over there, but I actually closed it to get some modeling on the face, some shadow over on this side. So we have our kind of light kind of wrapping around from this window here over onto this cheek. It's the main idea there. So that's it for the lights. You're actually hearing the AirPods Pro 3. Not great. When I did my testing before, it sounded like it was doing some aggressive noise reduction, so not ideal. I probably would have been better off with just the old earpods, the wired earpods. So there's some things, that's what I would probably do different, even though visually it's probably not the best look, or I need to bring a USB microphone with me. I normally travel lately with my Rode Interview Pro, which is the wireless microphone that also has a built-in recorder. And I don't use it for wireless, but I travel with it so that when I'm working on my video for my main YouTube channel, I can record that independently as I'm usually doing a screen flow or screen recording, and then sync that up in post. And that's just mainly to optimize the signal to noise ratio, so I get the microphone pretty close and optimize that. So, but that doesn't work with the MacBook here. So there's no way to, unless I brought the receiver as well, which I did not bring. So, and this is it. Just get it done, as Mark says. They're not all that bad, Matt says, the AirPods Pro. So these are the latest generation, the version 3. All right, so that's the main thing. And then we're just using OBS on the computer to capture the webcam footage and the audio from the AirPods, and then that's just sending it to YouTube. That is literally the sum total here. I think the webcam actually is surprisingly decent when you light decently. So there's that. DaVinci Girl says you can demonstrate in the stream this new plugin from the video today? ? I'm not gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna push it. The encoder, in my experience, OBS needs a little bit of headroom to make sure that you can do things. So far, it says we've dropped to 0 frames, and we're doing 10K bits per second using a little over 4% of the CPU, and we're streaming at 30 frames per second. I didn't push it to 60. So All right. So that's what we're doing here today. Okay. There was a question that was submitted ahead of time, and so let me just address that really quickly here. This was from our friend Chris Pert. Says, I've been following your channel for a long time and noticed that you have UAD hardware, that's Universal Audio Apollo hardware. I run a small production company in Jamaica that mainly produces corporate talking head videos. Give me just a moment here. We better put the glasses on. Talking head videos, along with occasional small to mid budget commercials. We've also been developing podcast pitches for a few of our clients, and I wanted to ask if you've used any Universal Audio or UAD plugins in your video or audio workflows, either for your own projects or at your office. They seem to be very popular for voiceover work. In your experience, do you think they're worth incorporating? For context, I currently use the Isotope post-production plugin suite and DaVinci Resolve for post. I don't own any of the Apollo hardware, but I was told that I can use the plugins natively in Fairlight. There's a sale, and I've always been curious about the legendary, quote, legendary UAD plugins. Thanks, Chris. Okay, Chris, that is a fantastic question. The Universal Audio plugins, there are two versions. There's the stuff that runs only natively on their hardware, and then they have the new versions, which are 100% software based. So you can use the software ones. The main thing that the Universal Audio plugins will achieve for you is that they will recreate a lot of kind of vintage analog hardware and the non-linearities and the character that they produce. And what that means in practical terms, so for example, if you gain up or you push the gain a little bit harder on some of them, you start to get some saturation, for example, or the compressors may work in a nonlinear fashion that actually in music production they've for a long time they've thought, well, that sounds really good. For voiceover, I think it can be useful. I don't think it's a must have, to be honest, but they're worth a try if you've if you've got I guess if you've got the cash to burn. I think the thing that I use the most is the LA2A. Do I use it in my work? Not much. I have used the LA2A compressor for just spoken word audio in a few occasions, but it's not like it's not a staple for me, honestly. So I just want to be really clear and honest. They're fun. They're fun if you really kind of dig in and get to know how they work, they're kind of their character, but they're not. Wouldn't call them indispensable at least for the voiceover work that I do. So don't use them very often in the short. All right, what have we got here in the chat? Christopher asked, do you have the Epiphan Nano or the Pearl 2? Is the Nano portable enough to take with you? This week I'm traveling for a little bit longer, so my suitcase was packed full. Normally I could probably stuff it in there. However, that's a little bit overkill for what I'm doing here because I'm not bringing an external camera. If I did bring an external camera and an external microphone, that might make sense. But since I'm not, I probably wouldn't do that. Okay. Matt says, yeah, my M4 MacBook Air has 32 gigabytes of RAM. So yeah, that should do that. That probably would have been fine for what I was doing. I'm using this MacBook Air was bought literally to be a quick and easy way to be able to quickly do email or do something on the web, but not for content creation. So I do have the option of bringing a MacBook Pro with me, and then I could leave the MacBook Air with Danny. But for her work at Light and Sound Media, but I usually prefer to travel with the MacBook Air because it's so much lighter. It's the 15-inch version, which is nice because the screen is a nice size, but the weight is substantially less than a MacBook Pro. And we have the bigger MacBook Pro. So in any case, that's the story there. All right. DaVinci Girl, how good does it reduce the reverb from this specific room now? I assume you're talking about Acon Digital's Dialogue Extract 2, or sorry, Extract Dialogue 2. It does a nice job of removing the reverb from this specific room. So just a tradition, just a typical hotel room. Looks something like this. Not huge, not tiny, but it does a nice job. If you close the window, the nice thing about this hotel room is they actually have windows you can open. It's now open. I don't know if you can hear that. And I closed it again. But the problem is that the cable cars are right out here. And the cable cars make a lot of noise. They're incredibly loud. So that's why I closed it for the live stream here. Matt says he has a Pearl Nano. He wants to sell if anyone's interested. OG Quasi, let's just hope the hotel Wi-Fi stands up. So I think it's okay from what I can see on this side. Let me know if you're experiencing any cutouts or anything, but so far it's been good. It is a Sunday at noon, and I expect that most business travelers aren't here yet, and the tourists are out exploring the city right now. So hopefully that'll means the Wi-Fi is got plenty of headroom, plenty of bandwidth. Dan says, Dan, I'm using Audient Aurea in my studio and it's very good. Can really recommend that unit. Very cool. Audient Aurea. I'm not familiar with that one, but Mark says the window light looks great, by the way. Sometimes windows are it when it comes to lighting, if you can pull it off. The problem is I can pull it off with a webcam, but there's not necessarily enough room if I had a full setup with like a proper camera on a tripod if I were doing a talking head, other than just me here. Matt says, yeah, the MacBook Pro are a brick, and the Air with 32 gigabytes of RAM and M4 can handle almost anything. Yeah, when it's time to upgrade, I'm looking forward to upgrading this one here to something more like that. Christopher asks, how are the Acon digital plugins protected? iLock or something else? iLock equals no sale. No, it's not iLock. You just go to the Acon digital website, and then under that, they have just that little big long string that's a license code that you paste in the first time you use it, and then it's authorized on your computer. So no, you don't need iLock for this. DaVinci Girl says, thanks in case of demonstration. If we try that, it'll be the last thing I do on the stream today because I'm pretty sure it won't be able to handle it. Christopher asks, which part of San Francisco, or Frisco, as he says? I'm on Nob Hill, so kind of in the Union Square area, Union Square or Nob Hill area. Getting a good workout walking around. So when I was here yesterday, when I wasn't working on the Acon Digital Extract Dialogue video, I went out. I went to the grocery store real quick to pick up some things. Went out to get some food, and the hills, Nob Hill has some sidewalks that are like incredibly steep. Kind of getting some good exercise here. Get anything good on Black Friday, Cyber Monday? No, nothing. Sorry, the laptop moved a little bit there. Nothing exciting. I'm not a huge shopper. I'm at a point in my life where I have most of the gear that I need, so I don't. If something that I already wanted comes up and it's on special, I'll get it, but nothing like that this year. Okay. DaVinci Girl, I still use the Acusonos D reverb. Reduces reverb much better than iZotope. And in the future, I lost interest because just VST3. D reverb Acusonos is free and it's the best. Is Accusamos the company that was bought and now you can't get their stuff anymore? I can't remember. I think that might be the case. All my trips to San Francisco are this is Christopher, to Moscone, but the area around Japantown is really wonderful if you get a chance to explore a bit. Yes, in fact, after the stream here, I'm going to go to Japantown because Danny's favorite paper store, she does origami, is located in Japantown, and we're going to do some virtual shopping. She's she's not here, but I can pull her up on FaceTime, and she can walk me through the store and tell me what she's interested in. Matt says, I got Aaron Parecki an old DJI Action 2, the square one, for $100 and got a Pelican case at B&H for half off. Yeah, that's a great time to get those kind of things too. So the things that you know you need that just you haven't bought yet, but just happen to be at a really, really good price. I think I bought some new pants on Black Friday. That's the only thing I bought. All right. Couple things. Sorry, again, the Acon Digital, going back to that. I did some more testing with it since I published the video, and the nice thing about the Acon Digital Extract Dialog 2 is that you get this essentially frequency response graph where you can change the sensitivity of the algorithm for particular frequencies. So in other words, if you know you have a lot of low frequency noise, you can tell it, hey, be more aggressive or be more sensitive to low frequency noise as opposed to higher frequency noise, which you don't get that control on a lot of the others. But even so, the kind of just the AI algorithm that the Isotope Dialog Isolate is using still works really well. I was comparing them a little bit more carefully, and even though I don't have that more specific control in the Isotope Dialog Isolate, it actually does a pretty nice job. Maybe better in some cases. It depends on the sample that you're specifically working with. So, all right. Couple of good questions coming in here. From Jian. Curtis, I've been wondering for a while, with all the software available and the different treatments that can be applied, how much difference does it make using a pro level mic, $1,000 plus, versus a $500 mic? Well, once you get above about, I would say once you get above $100, depending on the type of microphone that you're buying, for dynamic mics at least, once you get to $100 and above, it's more about how the mic fits the voice that's talking into it than it is about more money equals better quality automatically. So a Shure SM58 can be a fantastic fit for a lot of voices, and it's I think they're now $110 for the first time in their however many 40-year history, 45, 50-year, I don't know how long they've been producing that mic. For the first time, it's actually increased in price to $110, I think. So can you find another one that fits your voice even better for more money? Probably. And the same with condenser microphones. I think it's once you get to, some people will disagree with me, especially some of the people that work in music and record vocals all the time. But I think a Rode NT1 Signature Series, the difference between that and a Neumann U87 AI, maybe the Neumann fits your voice a little bit better, but I think the NT1 Signature Series is good enough that with software you could get it to sound how you need it to. So yeah, I think there's definitely a case. I think there are some mics, unless you're doing live. Live is a little bit different. Can you still EQ live? Of course you can, but I think it's a little bit easier to dial things in post, especially if you're working with your own voice. But yeah, I think $100 and more for dynamic mics, probably 150 or more for condenser mics, and then to me, it's more about finding one that fits your voice. I will say there are some that are colored enough that even with amazing software, you can't necessarily make it sound exactly how you want or exactly like another mic. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Okay, next question from Ty John TV. Since your experience with audio gear, what would you suggest for a clean, automated sounding dialogue recorder for student filmmaking projects? I want something easy for kids to use. I don't know what age kids you're talking about, but probably something like a Zoom H5 Studio or a Zoom F3, depending on whether you want built-in mics or just external mics. But those would probably be two that I would kind of gravitate towards first. Really quality sound, pretty simple to use. Christopher asks if the Acon Digital Extract Dialog 2 runs in real time, or is it only for post work? It can run in real time. Yeah, I don't know how much latency there is. I haven't specifically measured that because I was using it for post, but you don't have to do offline processing with it. You can actually run it as you're playing back. Mark asks if I feel that Dialog Isolate is markedly better than RX11. You have more control. So I think it was RX11 where they split it out to the 3 different faders. So you have voice, reverb, and noise. Is it markedly better? I think it is a little bit better. Is it night and day difference? Depends on the audio sample again, but I think it is better. Is it worth the upgrade? Yeah. Is it worth buying it just for that? Depends on how much post work you're doing as to whether or not that's useful for you. The best quality setting is actually really, really good. Does a really nice job. So, all right, back to the question of Acusonis. DaVinci Girl. Yes, Acusonis was sold to Facebook for $14 million, but the last week they give away all their plugins licensed for free. I did post to Discord. The complete suite was free for download. I did offer the download to your Discord. Thank you. Do not suggest this Chinese toy that you did recommend 13 years ago. Ha ha ha. DaVinci Girl, I think the context is important there. If you're talking about someone who's making TikTok videos, Talking Head, you could actually, it sounded okay. Anyway, AudioBuff says my new iPad has a USB-C, and this is the first time I've used the C. Blown away at all it can handle. I just purchased Shure's XLR to USB-C adapter. Excited to see how it works. Well, that's exciting, AudioBuff. You're getting very tech enthusiastic lately. Good job. Someday we may even see you on the Discord. All right. DaVinci Girl says DR50 is cheap and okay for such purpose. I'm not sure what that is. DR50. Anyway. All right. Time for a little drink. How is the quality of the stream? Is it coming through okay still? According to this, we're using, it's up to about 6% CPU now, still at 10K BPS for the bitrate, and still says that we've dropped 0 frames. I don't know. Looks like we're okay. AudioBuff, I'm happy to report, is now past the VCR tech. Stream is totally fine, according to Matt. John says yes. Good. All right. Coming up next, a few things we have in the pipeline here. Let me just, I don't want to do that on my phone. For upcoming reviews, in terms of audio quality, what do we have coming? Apologies if this shakes the screen. Actually, I don't want to open that right now. Let me just do this from memory. Mostly lighting, to be honest. So the Amaran Ray lights, which we reviewed a couple of weeks ago, there are additional models. They're really tiny. The 120 and the 60 are just these little tiny lights with a little Bowens mount made out of some composite material. It's not metal. So people want to know, hey, are these good enough as key lights and things like that? I think the 60 is probably not. I wouldn't probably use that as a key light. You could probably get away with it if you had to, but the problem I see with the 60 and the 120, the Amaran Ray is what I'm talking about specifically here, is that those the Bowens mount is made out of a composite material, and unless your softbox that you're attaching it to has some sort of means of attaching the softbox to your light stand as opposed to the light stand so that the light doesn't have to bear the weight of the big softbox, I don't see them as being great key lights that way. However, the 120 certainly is powerful enough to use it as a bounced key. So if you're bouncing the light off of something else, then I think the 120 could absolutely do that job without a problem. But and color quality wise, if they're in the same league as the 660C and the 360C, which I expect they are, haven't measured them yet, but if they are, then I think they could be used in that context. They come with the kit I got came with a small softbox. It's only about this big. And the problem with that is that at the typical distances you're working with key lights for talking head, it's going to be kind of small. So it's going to be a fairly hard light source. So you're going to get much more dramatic shadows. You're not going to have this kind of very nice, soft triangle of light over on the far side of the face that you would get with a softer source, like in this case, this window here, which goes up to there and comes down to here and is probably about this wider than the frame here. So that's where I think the 120 with the included softbox is not going to be not a great key light. That would make it more of an accent light at that point. I'll test it. I'll put the bigger softbox on it and see what happens. What else can I tell you about in terms of videos coming up? I do have a live stream switcher from OC. It is the OC GoStream 8 ISO. It's a small switcher the size of the A10 Mini, the original A10 Minis, not the Extremes. It has 4 HDMI inputs plus 4 SDI inputs. Plus it can play back media from the deck itself, from the switcher. It has a little SD card slot. You can put that in. If I were buying today, I'd be very tempted to go with that instead of the A10 Mini Extreme ISO, which is what I use right now. But I am bought into that ecosystem, so it's a tough sell because I've got the... Oh, and also the streaming works through whatever gateway or router configuration issue is preventing my A10 Mini from streaming directly to YouTube. The OC works just fine. I can't understand, and OBS works just fine. So there's some very arcane little setting somewhere that's doing something funky. But yeah, so that one's coming up too. I need to dig into that one a little bit more. Okay, let's see what's going on here in the chat. Keith says it sounds fine. OG quasi stream quality is way better than what I expect from a hotel room. Timing is everything. And we're going through a VPN too. Let's see, DaVinci Girl, context. I do not support Chinese products and any product that is manufactured there because political reasons. That's fine. Understood. EKU Film, do you know of any flex LED lights that you recommend? Those very light, flexible, soft LEDs, light panels. They seem the best for overhead lighting stuff. It's been a while since I've used those. I know Amaran has some, the light mats. Don't remember what they call them specifically. Yeah, I haven't used any of the most modern ones, but they are convenient because you can roll them up and such. I have used some in the distant past, but not. I never used the Amaran ones. I would expect that the ones from Amaran have decent color quality because they always do. They have for the last easily 5+ years had what I would call acceptable color quality. So I'd take a look at the Amaran ones if you're looking at those. All right, for Mark. Mark says taking advantage of loyalty offers plus the CM deals to upgrade from RX10 to RX10 Advanced to RX11 Advanced. Having the reverb broken out in dialogue isolate would be really helpful in my use case. Yeah, I do find it pretty useful. All right, Audio Buff and Matt seem to be making plans here, and they're going to eat some good tacos. Incidentally, I do have a report to make here from San Francisco, the taco place I ate at yesterday. What's it called? Al Pastor Papi was very good. Recommended if you're in the area. All right. DaVinci Girl asks, is someone here that uses Fairlight console parts or a mixer? In this case, is it possible to open and show the electronics inside? Yeah, I don't. Don't have one here with me, and I have the desktop console is the only thing I have, which is not the original hardware that I think you're talking about. Matt is talking about the OC switcher. It has the 2 XLR ports. That's right. So you can feed audio from a microphone directly in. I think Phantom powers one of the 2 ports. It's a little bit of a funky audio implementation. And I actually talked to Mr. Liren, who is the one who runs OC, when I was at NAB in April. And I gave him some advice on some things they could do in their next iteration that would make the audio inputs better. So full line level support, which now you kind of have to tweak by just gaining way down. You should probably phantom power both ports if you're going to have 2 ports on there. So anyway, I gave him some input on that, and I think he hopefully took that well. And then Christopher says, yes, and this is part of the reason that I am sticking with the Blackmagic ecosystem. Well, there are a few reasons. Number one, their hardware has been their switching hardware, the live streaming switching hardware has been pretty solid for a few years. And we have the control surface, the ME1 control panel that Danny uses when we're doing our typical live streams. And they're great. It's fantastic. It's so nice to have I think it was easier for Danny to pick up than if you're just using the ATEM Mini, like the physical hardware itself to do the switching. And the reason for that is that you have the scribble strip, the digital scribble strip. So it actually says what each of the buttons are switching to. It's not just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is actually, this is the main cam, this is the overhead cam, this is the Mac, this is the, this is the super source, which in our case is the kind of the agenda that we show. So yeah, having that has been really helpful. And yeah, it was money. It was money for sure. Hey, Cal Borden, it's good to see you here. Cal and I were former colleagues at a company called AOL a number of years ago. It's good to see you, Cal. And Christopher asked if I've tested the ATEM streaming lately. Maybe my ISP fixed something. I haven't tried it recently. I did try it on the OC and it worked just fine, but I haven't tried it on the ATEM. Right, Cal is looking for a video switcher leaning towards the Rodecaster Video S, as I already have the Rodecaster Pro 2. Yeah, I think if you've got the Rodecaster Pro 2, the Video S makes sense. So you can switch between that. I think that Video S is the newer one, the smaller one. So yeah, that would make sense. I have not used the Rodecaster videos, but I did some research into them. They look pretty solid. Again, I'm just kind of in that Blackmagic ecosystem with the investment I've made already. But especially if you're using a Rodecaster Pro 2, you can hook that up, and that's a pretty nice combo there. All right. Matt says to EKU film or EKU film, not sure how you pronounce that, but Aputure Infinimats are good, but they are not cheap. That's the Aputure instead of the Amaran line. Yeah. X Daniel Patrick Curtis. Any news on a Sound Devices Mix Pre Series 3? I have big news for you on that front. I have no idea. It's not that I have no idea. If I did actually know that one was coming, I would be under embargo. I'm not under embargo. But when I was at the Sound Devices booth talking with Paul Isaacs in April at NAB, we did have a conversation. And he incidentally, he initiated the conversation. He said, "Hey, Curtis, if we were working on a new Mix Pre, what were some of the features you'd like to see?" So we had a little conversation about that. And he's not, his hand is close to his chest. So I don't know what they're planning exactly. I don't know if they're working on a more compact Mix Pre with only two inputs, like an F3. No idea. I did, for me, what would be more important for my own use case is something that is, well, a few things. Number one, I'd love to see dual card slots. I'd like to see a different form factor so that the controls can all be on the front, including the menu/headphone encoder. It doesn't make sense to put that in a bag if the headphone encoder and the menu encoder is on the side of the unit. So that makes the Mix Pre, it's always made the Mix Pre a little bit more challenging to use in a bag. Not a complete deal breaker, but definitely a problem. I think the battery sled needs a redesign. I'm not a fan of that. I think a lot of people are not a fan. I've never had one fail, and I always use the NPF battery sled. But I think that a lot of people would like to see that change. I'd like to see a Hiroshi power input on even the smaller models as well. That's iffy. I don't know if we'd see that, and I don't know how much that would increase the price. But those are some. I'd like to see a slightly bigger screen. Otherwise, I have to do this all day long. Like, okay, put on the reading glasses. Okay, take off the reading glasses. Okay, put on the reading glasses. Off on, off on. So it would be nice to have a slightly bigger screen. But those are some things that we talked about with him. Right. Mark says, here in San Antonio, we have to work hard to not eat tacos every day. Dang near the perfect food. And I am not talking about the crunchy shell variety. Yeah, you're talking about legit tacos. I can't imagine what it's like. Well, I can't imagine what it's like to not eat them every day. I lived in Tucson, Arizona for a while. It's not too different in some ways. See, that's where I differ with Curtis. I had 12 customers with ATEM ISO Extreme. 4 failed in 1 year. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. I did also hear a guy who was running a broadcast studio of some sort, a fairly large one with fairly large budgets. And he was like, yeah, I love Blackmagic switching hardware. You just have to buy 2 of everything, which was, of course, to imply that they don't always hold up very well necessarily. And you got to have something that you can fall back to. So Da Vinci Girl says at 9 January in Mainz, Germany, TV studio had a lot of items, including lights that can be taken for free. Also, I don't know what mobiliar, like chairs, furniture, transport, 19-inch. So if someone have an interest, I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. If you're in Germany. Matt says to Calvin, I like my YOLO Box Ultra over the road. That's a I respect that preference, Matt. Um, and to be fair, I tried the YOLO Box Pro. I was not on the Ultra, but the Pro. They sent me an early copy, and the as you've mentioned before, the software was nowhere near ready, and it was a nightmare. Is it good now? Probably, but man, was it buggy back then, and basically unusable back then. All right, OG Quasi Mix Pre 3 refined by Curtis Judd. Yeah, there's some things I'd like to see, and actually, I'll be honest, I have a choice of a lot of different. I don't know if you're hearing that noise outside, a truck backing up. This is a noisy city, by the way. I asked, when I have a choice, 90% of my YouTube videos are recorded on a Mix Pre. Yeah. DaVinci Girl, I asked to see the mixer or console electronics because the project is to mix original what it is better, and the new DaVinci Resolve hardware, we think it's absolute the same hardware and never changed. Maybe so. I do not know. Okay. Christopher says in response, in regards to the Mix Pre suggestion, needs NPF batteries as primary. I agree. AA batteries in the Mix Pre is just doesn't make any sense. The Mix Pre, the big downside of the Mix Pre in my mind is that it is power inefficient relative to other field recorders from Zoom and from Tascam. No question. So yeah, NPF batteries should be the standard. HR4 port on all sizes. I assume that's the Hiroshi. Yeah, you're talking about the Hiroshi port. Yeah, I agree. Dante, 48 channel, 4 to 8 channels. That would be cool. I did not say that, but that would be cool. That would be tricky for them because they'd have to be willing to cannibalize their 833 in essence, which does not support Dante of any sort. And you only get Dante with a single RJ45 port, so non-redundant on the 888, and it's not until you get to the Scorpio that you get the redundant port. So I think it would be awesome if they did that. I think it'd be a long shot if they did do it. And then you say FRKS Dante is flagship only. Other industries have entry level points. Yeah, I don't know if you're talking about the chipsets there for the different Dante versions, but it would be cool to have kind of an entry level Dante implementation on the Mix Pre. All right. Daniel says, for those talking about switchers, the Yellow Box Extreme looks enticing. Not sure if it's great for professional broadcast environments. Yeah, I don't know. Aaron Parecki could probably say better than me. Matt could say better than me. Matt does say, never buy a Yellow Box until it's been on the market for a year. And I think what he's referring to there is the finishing the software implementation. Yeah, and that's $1,300 compared to the Video S at $499. So yeah, there's a big price difference there as well. And Christopher says we can hear the truck. Yes, good. Well, I'm glad these are not doing super extreme noise reduction, because it was sounding. I did a test recording ahead of time, and it sounded like there was a lot of noise reduction. Too aggressive on the noise reduction. EcuFilm, did you hear about the 2 Arri factories and facilities closing down in Germany due to industry decline and shifts? I did not. However, I will say that NAB last April, there was definitely felt like a cloud hanging over the industry. That was a pretty tough time, and it doesn't look like it's necessarily getting any better. The thing with Arri that's so interesting to me is it's so niche, so niche. It's a business model. I don't know what the answer is. I think everyone would love it if they would make some lower end cameras as well that incorporated a lot of the tech that they've already done the research and development for. But they've never produced a camera, as far as I'm aware, that's less than, I don't know, what was the Amira when it came out? I think it was still like, it was north of $10,000 US. I don't know, but and it was not the same thing, of course, as their higher end cameras. Daniel says, Curtis, do you envision yourself moving on from the Canon C70 in the future? I shoot on a Lumix S5 II, but in the future I would prefer something with built-in NDs. Sorry, not sound related. No, that's totally fine. Of course, I'll probably move on at some point. I don't know when. Right now, it's still fulfilling my needs very nicely. And here at Webflow, we're invested in a bunch of Canon C70s, and they're doing great. I considered the C80, the full frame version, but I'd have to re-lens and buy a bunch of new lenses to kind of get the right focal lengths for what I'm doing. And so that means it's the price of the camera plus lens, and I don't know that it's really justified for, certainly not for my YouTube videos. And even at our studio, everything was built around the Super 35 sensors, and that's all the lens investments that we've made are all built around Super 35, so it doesn't make sense to move to the C80 in that case either. So yeah, but at some point I think we'll probably move to something else. Matt says, EcuFilm Arri is for sale. I know more than I can say. Interesting. And then Christopher clarifies, thank you, Christopher, for the clarification. Scorpio is not redundant Dante, only switched. SourceBot, even though it uses Brooklyn, which is the chipset for Dante, which supports redundancy, they fumbled the implementation. Interesting. All right. Matt says the Extreme is massive. I assume you're talking about the A10 Mini Extreme. It is much bigger than a YOLO box. And then Christopher clarifies the backing up signal from the truck, which is I don't know, what is that, a 5 or 2 kilohertz tone? I'm not sure. Is a baseband type signal that noise reduction tends to be limited to. Okay. Matt, then randomly, unless I missed it, someone else was talking about it. Matt says that the AirPods Pro don't fit his ears. The regular AirPods do. Yeah, I don't know. I had to switch the little tips for the AirPods Pro to fit my ears. Evidently, I have big ear canals, so I had to use the largest size tips to make it fit right. And actually, what's cool about them is that they do. It actually does some tests. It can do some tests. It has sensors built into the ear pods themselves so that it can test to make sure you have a good seal, which was kind of cool. Back to talking about Arri. Christopher says Arri is essentially aimed at a rental-only model, not owner-operator, even though there are some owner-operators. And then Mark says that Arri is trying to get out of the lighting business. The closures do not affect the camera or optics business group. Okay, well, that's, yeah. Arri, that'll be the end of an era. So many of the lights you see on the big production sets are Arri still, even a lot of HMIs, especially when they have to bring out the big lights. That's interesting. Now Matt's talking about the Extreme has 5 4K HDMI ports and 3 1080 ports and can stream 4K. I just don't think 4K streaming is needed. But Tom Buck has been using it as a recorder. Are we talking about the new third generation Extreme there? I'm just still on the first generation. Or sorry. G2. I think it's a G2 Extreme. I did not know it had 4K ports. Interesting. Audio buff. Mark Greenberg. Several years ago, I did a job with San Antonio Sound and Light. I took care of the audio, and they did lighting and video. Seems to be a good group of people. I don't know if Mark, if you've worked with them. And then Mark says, Arri got a little too complacent in the high-end lighting and stopped innovating, and their lunch was eaten by Aputure and Nanlite. The Aputure story is so fascinating because I feel like I got to watch it from not the total start, but pretty early on. Back in 2015, Ted Sim called me on my mobile phone, and we had a conversation. We had a FaceTime call, and he wanted to send me the Lightstorm, their first panel. So they had been making the Amaran kind of plastic panels before, and then the Lightstorm was their first kind of more professional panel, and it had a good number of limitations. Its beam angle was pretty narrow for a panel, but the color quality was really good for the time. This is 10 years ago. And so that's how I kind of got connected to Aputure and the starter, how it kind of started a relationship there. And being able to watch them grow from that point till today has just been so fascinating. And yeah, they have definitely, you can go to a lot of mid-budget and low-budget productions now, and you're not seeing Arri lights at all. You're seeing Aputure lights to a large extent. You're seeing a lot of other companies as well. Nanlite, I think, is one that you're seeing as well. I think you will see some kind of people that are used to the light panels, so you'll still see a fair number of those out there, and some others as well. But you're definitely not seeing the Arri lights like you used to. So it's very interesting. That reverse truck would have been a nice demo recording for some spectral repair from OG Quad. Yes, not hard to get a sample like that here. In fact, those are some of the samples I was working with yesterday. Were the cable cars, and they have a little bell. It's a delightful sounding bell, by the way. Ding 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 ding. It always sounds really happy. Like, hey, it's the cable car. But those things are, the cable cars themselves are incredibly noisy. You've got the cable running through the street and the channel in the street. And then when the cable car when it finishes coming up one of the steep hills, and then it kind of flattens out at the intersection, some of those intersections have cross tracks. And so when it passes that, it's just like so noisy. And then it goes back up the hill where it gets slightly quieter again, but they're not, these are old cable cars, and they sound old. So I got some samples of that, and that was useful as well. The yellow box. Oh, you're talking about the yellow box Extreme. Okay, now I get it. So not Blackmagic hardware, but you say it's massive: 10.4 inches by 6.6 inches by 1.1 inches and 3.3 pounds. So that's pretty big. It's like a very overgrown Android device with specialized ports. All right. DaVinci Girl's talking about how TV studios have a bunch of products: Dante, Maddie, Arri, and they have a lot of leftover stuff they're not using anymore, and they give it away. Look into it. Matt clarified he's talking about Yellow Box, not Blackmagic. Okay. Mark says, I'm still using some of the old Aperture LS1 panels. That's the one I was talking about, LS1, on a regular basis. Still going strong, still great quality. The only problem I ever ran into with those is I did have one of the external power bricks fail on me. They sent a new one, but other than that, they were really solid. Audio buff. I'm not going to sing this, but Curtis Judd, the San Francisco Tree. I think you're thinking of Rice-A-Roni, not Curtis Judd. Ding, ding. Did you bring, this is from Christopher, did you bring the H5 Studio or H6 Studio to do some field recording there in Frisco? No, I don't own those. I had to send those back. I don't do a lot of field recording, and I think if I did, I would love to have an H5 Studio. That would be great, but not something I typically do, so I didn't, and I don't own them, so. We have some taco meetups, potential taco meetups happening in the chat here today. Audio buff, this is from Mark. If you get the church job here, tacos are on me. Ooh, that sounds very good. There we go. All right. Last thoughts here as we get ready to wrap up. According to OBS here, 0 frames dropped this entire live stream. I cannot believe it. CPU's at 5.9%, 30 frames per second, 10K bits per second on the streaming. So I don't know what to say. I'm surprised and delighted. Thank you, Hotel, for the use of the Wi-Fi today. All right. So yeah, we were talking about some of the upcoming reviews, videos that we have. Audio-wise, I think I want to. I have a curiosity, and I don't know. I don't have anything I can say about this right now in terms of speaking with authority, but I am really curious. When I go to some of the channels that focus primarily on music production, studio work, discussions about preamps. There is a channel called, what is it called? It's named after the guy, something creative. Newer channel, really interesting. What he does is sometimes he rates different products. So he did a whole thing where he spent for, I don't know, 30 minutes talking about all the different audio interfaces he's worked with at different price points, and he rated them, like from God level to don't ever bother don't bother. And he did a similar type thing with analog channel strips and preamplifiers. Incidentally, he said that the Rupert Neve designed Shelford channel was not God level. It was the next level down, which I thought, I was like, okay. I'd like to understand what these people are talking about, like how they make these decisions and how one of them sounds more three-dimensional to them versus very flat. Yeah, I'm curious. That's a curiosity of mine. And if when I listen to the Shelford channel, I do hear some definite analog kind of saturation in some of the frequencies. It's cool. Is it to die for? I don't know. I mean, these people are recording vocals for songs, and so I think in those cases, the vocals are an instrument, and everything is about making this sound exactly how they want it to sound, how cool they want it to sound. But for voiceover, it seems like, for example, what's the distinction, like a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 versus some Shelford channel? What is the difference there? Now, one of them has both a preamp and a converter in it. That's the Scarlett, whereas the Shelford channel is just the preamp and some processing, but no conversion, no digital conversion. I'm just curious, like how many people will notice that with voiceover? How many audience members would notice that with voiceover? And Matt says, if you're not a studio guy, you probably don't know what to listen for. Clearly, I don't know what to listen for. Clearly. Um, in any case, that's a curiosity I have. Okay, Ecufilm, Curtis, you haven't had any issues with the Rode NTG5. I have had some weird sound problems, but only rarely. The only thing I've noticed with the Rode NTG5 is that when you feed it phantom power, when you first turn on phantom power, you have to give it some time to settle. Once it settles, I have never had an issue with it. I think some people are like turning on phantom power and hearing stuff that's weird right away, not letting it settle and then freaking out. I don't know if that's been your experience or not, but I've never had any problems with my copy of the NTG5. I don't use it a ton. A lot of other mics that I go to before that one, but when I've used it, I've never had a problem with it. Matt says, again, referring to my little curiosity about preamplifiers, I've been doing this for decades and the studio guys had to educate me. All right. And Christopher says, I argue that once in a mix, nobody will know what was used for the recording because of all the other stuff in the mix. Same thing with the mic is too noisy. Once in a mix, you tend not to know. Yeah, I think some people obsess a little too much over noise. Like, oh my gosh, this microphone has a self noise of 15 dBA weighted. I would never use that microphone. And I'm like, why not? I think there's a path that people take when it comes to audio work, and there's a level of maturity that you reach where it's like, I'll look at the specs and those are interesting, but they're not going to help me they're not going to make the decision for me. And if it's a, self noise spec that's greater than, I mean, there are some people that are like, I wouldn't use anything other than a Rode NT1 because it has the best, noise performance of any microphone out there. And it's like, if that's the only criteria you're using, you have some maturing to do. There's some other things or other elements, other aspects of this gear that you need to consider. And OG Quasi, I think you nailed it. Most people, most audience members, only notice audio differences when it's bad. Okay, friends. Oh, Sinov, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I probably am, but she says MixPre sounded more three-dimensional compared with the Tascam on my DT990 Pro headset from your Tascam review. Very good. And then one last thought from Christopher before we wrap up here today. Alternative take. If you think your gear, software, or whatever is the best, it changes your mental processing and lets you be more creative, presumably because you're not worried that you don't have good enough gear. I think that's a valid way to look at it. So, all right, friends, thanks for joining me today. It's good to be able to hang out for a little bit. Hope you're doing well. Get out there and make some great sound, and we will talk to you again next week. Take care, everybody.